So I wanted just to talk to you about, what should you know about physical therapy? And some of you may be connected with physical therapy already, and that's great. Um, as Pat mentioned earlier, I'm the project manager and one of the investigators for the imaging DMD studies at the University of Florida. And that's really my only disclosure that I have. And I am a physical therapist. So, um, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what a physical therapist is. We're really trained as movement experts. We have a background in muscles, physiology, the nervous system, and function. We're problem solvers. We are trained to analyze the way people move. And we're really specialists at adapting and modifying activities and environments. Within the profession of physical therapy, there are different specialists. And one of the areas that you can specialize in is pediatrics. And within pediatrics, there are several of us that have specialized in neuromuscular disorders. Probably your child has had some assessments that have either been given by an evaluator or a physical therapist. And so why is it important to do those assessments? We think it's really important because it gives us information about your child and about your child as an individual and where your child is at a particular moment in time. We use that information to help us develop a plan of care that's specific for your child. It also helps us identify critical time periods that alert us to a change that might be taking place in your child's life, particularly in terms of their function. Common assessments, and these may be assessments that your child has already been asked to do, would be the 10-meter walk run. These are time tests. The 10-meter walk run is how quickly can you climb 4 stairs? How quickly can you get up from lying on your back to a standing position? And then the 6-minute walk test. And I always, when I do this test, some of the boys, it's always so much fun to work with these kids. But they'll look at you and they'll go, well, how long is this going to take? And you go, 6 minutes. And they go, okay. Because, at a particular age, 6 minutes really doesn't mean anything. So other tests that you might have heard about, and Rachel had also mentioned these, would be the North Star Ambulatory Assessment and the Performance of the Upper Limb. All of these assessments are looking at function. The first 4 that I mentioned are looking at time, or they're looking at distance, they're looking at some type of measurement. The other 2 are also looking at measurements, but they're looking more at functional daily activities. Stretching. You've probably heard a lot about stretching, and it's important that we talk about it, and it's important for your child. There are lots of benefits to stretching, and so there's more to stretching than just range of motion. And so we want to talk about what some of those are, and on the next slide, we are going to list what other benefits are of stretching. Lots of questions that come up about this is, do I need to stretch every day? How often should I stretch? How long should I hold the stretch? What are the important stretches that I really should be doing? And some of the answers to those questions are, it's really individualized for your child, and some of them we just don't have really good answers for. We have enough information to tell you that we still think it's important to stretch, and we have some general guidelines on stretching. Fitting stretching into your routine. it can happen. And we want to help you make that happen. We don't want you to stress about it. We don't want it to be a burden. But there are routines that you do every day. And somewhere in your routine, we can fit in some stretching. So let's look at what some of those benefits are. Moving the joint through its available range of motion helps to lubricate the joint, helps to keep the synovium in the joint, which is like, it's a lubricant, and it keeps that producing. So it keeps the joint lubricated. It can also improve circulation to the muscles and to the joint. It gives us and the boys that are stretched a feeling of well-being. You know that if you've either had an injury or if you've had a stiff neck or a stiff shoulder, if somebody stretches that for you, it feels better after they're done stretching it. It can also help decrease pain. It can increase your tolerance to stretch. It can decrease muscle stiffness. It can temporarily increase range. And that is a possibility with stretching. Early on, a combination of stretching activities may lend itself to small gains in range of motion. General guidelines. There's a handout that's available through Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. A group of physical therapists throughout the country worked a long time trying to put this document together, and it covers a number of general topics like stretching, night bracing, equipment, positioning, and I think, correct me, Pat, if I'm wrong, but I think that if you registered for this session and for the virtual conference, that you were able to get this, and it's also available online at the Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy website. And then news headlines, big news. We now have how to stretch videos, which are also available online at the Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy website. And again, this took us a long time to get these up on the website, but we are really happy that they are there. And hopefully these will be helpful for you, because it's one thing to put up a still picture of how to stretch, but I think it's really helpful to actually see somebody do it and to actually see it done on a boy that has Duchenne. So these should be very helpful. I just wanted to put up a couple of examples of different ways that stretching can occur. Certainly parents can assist with stretching. And if you have a really young child, we would certainly encourage you to help with stretching just so that the alignment is right, so that we're sure that the right muscles are being stretched. But in addition to that, we also want your son to be as an active participant in stretching. This is something that will be done on a regular basis for a long period of time over years. And so the more you can get your son to participate in this process, the more they start to own it and the more they start to see it as just a regular part of their routine. Later on, they may not be able to participate as much, and so it becomes more of a passive stretching. Self-assisted stretching is really great. So you can see over on the right-hand side of the slide, there's a young boy here who's actually stretching his wrist and his hands. And then down in the bottom corner, you see another boy who's standing on a wedge who's stretching out his heel cords. So this is something that I'll often recommend, placing this wedge at the bathroom sink, because hopefully your son's going to brush his teeth every day and he can stand on this wedge at the same time he's brushing his teeth, and you get, at least 30 seconds of a good stretch while they're doing something that they have to do anyway. Oops, sorry, went the wrong way. And then here are some positioning activities. Right in the center, these two kids that are in red shirts. If you look at this young boy, this is called long sitting. So the legs are out in front, the legs are as straight as possible. This might be one that you do where you have your son back up against the couch so that his back is supported against the couch. So he's not responsible for holding his trunk up the entire time. And then his legs are straight out in front. This is a good way to kind of stretch out the hamstrings. What's cool about this little device that he's using, this is a device that adults would take to a stadium to protect their back when they're sitting in a stadium seat. And we have adapted it so that the legs stay straight and not rolled out with them kind of splayed out like this baby's legs are over here to the side. Another good position is to get your son on their stomach. And lying on your stomach helps to stretch out the front part of your hip, which are the hip flexors. And maybe there's a book that can be put here or some type of game that could be put here. And we're recommending, like 15, maybe 20 minutes if they'll stay there that long. If you can get 10 minutes, 10 minutes is better than no minutes. So another good way to stretch out the front part of the hip. And then I put a couple of examples here. Sideline is a good position as an alternative position. You would want to put a pillow between the knees to help keep the back flat. You don't want the back to be arched and swayed. So the pillow between the knees helps to keep the spine level and the back flat. Another position for resting could be lying on the back. If the back is swayed and off the surface, then we would recommend a very small pillow under the knees to keep the back flat. You don't want to necessarily sleep with a pillow under the knees unless the back is off the surface. If the back is straining to come in contact with the bed, then you'll want to put a pillow there. Otherwise, let the knees come down. Night splints. I know we mentioned them earlier. The night splints provide a maintained stretch, and there is some research on this that shows that a maintained stretch is a better stretch than a 30-second stretch. When we do this other kind of stretching that we talked about in these previous slides, we're recommending holding it for 30 seconds and repeating that at least once, but up to maybe 3 times. But a night splint actually holds the foot and the ankle in a stretched position while the child is sleeping. And this has been shown to have some good results at the ankle joint. It can assist in positioning the foot and also in flexibility. When is a good time to start wearing these braces? And as was said earlier, we rarely refer to these as braces with the boys. We talk about them as being space boots, moon boots. They can be anything you want them to be and anything they want them to be. The idea is to make them really cool. And you can see from the pictures that are down in the lower right-hand corner, you can get the plastic in all different kinds of designs. You can get colors. You can get all kinds of different things that make them more appealing. And different types of styles as well, depending on what your therapist might recommend. But we've also found that starting a child wearing them earlier gets them used to them. And again, it becomes part of their routine and makes them more comfortable to wear over time. What if your child says, no, I'm not wearing those, I'm not going to do it, forget about it? Well, then you negotiate. And there are lots of ways to negotiate. We've done things like, okay, I'm going to put them on right now while I'm still awake, and when I go to bed, I'll come in and I'll take them off of your feet. Or you can wear the left one tonight, you can wear the right one tomorrow. But realistically, what we found is if the brace is made well, and they're made, these are not braces right off the shelf, these are made specifically for your child. If they're made well, they shouldn't cause pressure, they shouldn't cause redness, and they should be comfortable. You can get them where you drill holes into the plastic so that they have some air circulation and they're not as hot. And if you start early, really the boys don't complain that much. But remember, negotiation is a very valuable tool. And we've built in some rewards for this as well. It really depends on your child and what works for your child. And remember, you're the parent, which is sometimes hard to remember because sometimes we get down to their level and it's hard to get back up. And then exercise. Moderation is the key here. Moving and participating is really important for your child's mental health, their emotional health, and their physical health. We want to help you figure out what the best exercise is for your child. And we can definitely help you modify exercises to make it work for your child. We want you to know what the precautions are. And the biggest precaution is don't overdo. Exercise is any physical activity that enhances or helps to maintain physical fitness and the overall health and wellness of your child. And you can see there are lots of different things that are available for a child. And there are some precautions which we can talk about in some of the small groups that we're going to have during the virtual conference. Exercise and physical activity, there is definitely research that says no exercise leads to muscle atrophy, but too much exercise leads to muscle breakdown. So resistive exercise is just too much. Lifting weights is not a good idea. Working out with stretchy resistive bands, riding a bike where you can change gears and there's resistance to it, that isn't a good idea. Running laps around the track, that's not a good idea. But are there alternatives to that? Absolutely. And we want to help you find those. Sitting on the couch all day, gaming, is not a great idea. To have times during the day where you allow that to happen, sure, let's compromise. Let's find ways to negotiate and make it a win-win for everybody, and particularly for your son. Exercise recommendations, age-appropriate recreational activities as opposed to strengthening regimes. Balance activities with rest. Avoid generalized fatigue. Avoid muscle soreness. If your son gets up the next day and says, oh, my muscles are really achy, or I've got cramping in my legs, or I've got dark urine, that means that your son has overdone it. So these are warning signs that whatever the activity was the day before was too much. What if you overdo? What if your son overdoes it? Rest and modulation are okay. Taking rest breaks during the day, that's okay. If you have a child that goes and goes until they absolutely collapse on the ground, you'll have to be the one that suggests the rest break. And maybe you have to say, hey, it's time for a snack. And you pull them aside and they have some water, they have some fruit, they have something healthy. And that's part of how you pull them outside of the activity. Decrease intensity, decrease duration of the activity. Water is a great way to exercise. It's the safest form of exercise. It's low load on the joints. There's not a lot of there's a lot of buoyancy in the water, which helps to support the body. You may improve aerobic function. You can also walk in the water in the shallow end, which is an added benefit. It develops independence and confidence. It fosters a lifelong recreational activity, freedom of movement in the later years as children age, and then it's a lot of fun. It's great for families and friends and getting neighbors together, and it's a great, safe way for your child to exercise. Equipment needs vary. And when is the right time to consider equipment? Equipment is a really broad term. Durable medical equipment, or DME, is something that you're going to be hearing about. And this is an insurance term. If you need durable medical equipment, that's something that PTs can really evaluate what your needs are for your child. If you're going through your insurance company, you will definitely need to justify that equipment. You will need a letter of medical necessity and usually a prescription from your physician. We can write those letters of medical necessity. We can deal with insurance companies on your son's behalf. So, please don't hesitate to ask us to help in that process. That's what we're trained to do. Different pieces of equipment offer different things for your child, and what might look really cool and nifty might not work in your home, or it might not work for your child. A lot of equipment vendors will let you borrow a piece of equipment, lend you a piece of equipment to see if it's right for your child. So you want to work with your physical therapist to make sure that you try a piece of equipment before you actually purchase equipment. Make sure it's right for your child and your family. Transitions, that means usually that there's some change occurring, either a change in care, change in environments, change in a school setting, change within a school setting, positioning, equipment needs, or exercise. We can help you. We want to help you. That's what we're trained to do. Let us help you navigate the way. So takeaways: physical therapists are movement experts. Movement is good. Stretching may help your son stay flexible. Night splints provide a maintained position and a maintained stretch on the heel cords. Exercise in moderation and modification of exercise is a good thing. Equipment needs vary, timelines vary. Let us help you figure that out. PT can help. Consult a physical therapist. Find out what is best for your child and family and what fits your routine. Everyone's routine is different. There's not just one recipe that fits everyone. Questions, we'll find the answers. Schedule a time to talk to us during the virtual conference.